doesn't live too far. Doesn't live too far from here. For me, is predominantly interested in HF contesting and CW. Vlad started with ham radio in 1980 in a local radio club in his hometown in former Yugoslavia. He got interested in contesting while studying in Belgrade, where he joined the University Radio Club, YU1EXY. He renewed his interest in operating and contesting after building a small station in Nepean in 1999. And in 2010, Vlad purchased a property outside of Ottawa where he built a more competitive station. Nick of VE3EY has been a ham since 1979. His primary interests are contesting and chasing rare DX. He has been privileged to operate from some well-appointed stations, including VE3EJ, VE3JM, K8CC, K3LR, and K1LZ. He also likes to occasionally operate from southern latitudes. Nick was fortunate to attend WRTC in 2010, 2014, and 2018 as a referee. So we'll turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, Vlad, I think you're good. Your audio is okay.
Yep. Okay, my audio is
fine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everybody. So yeah, Nick and I will be doing this presentation. We didn't do a dry run, so hopefully it will go okay. And this is supposed to be a bit lighter topic from Dave's. So yeah, back in the spring last year, Nick and I were invited by the K1LZ team to operate from Grass's superstation in the CQ Worldwide CW contest. As most of you probably know, Krasi is a passionate ham radio operator and station builder. He is also a successful businessman. He mentioned many times that he loves to spend some of his fortune on ham radio. And as you may know, he has built a world-class station in Jonesboro in northeastern Maine. So we'll say a few more words about the station later. So Krasi has been organizing multi-op teams for some major contests. And Jeff and Krasi made a presentation in Dayton last year about their station. And you can find that presentation on YouTube. So in the presentation, Jeff was also talking about their selection criteria when it comes to choosing operators. And me, after listening to that presentation, it was making me a bit nervous, and I would wonder if I would fulfill the criteria of being one of those chosen operators. So maybe we could tell you a few words about how we got invited to that event. Maybe Nick can start, if that's okay.
Yes, hi, Vlad, thank you, and good afternoon. I think it's good afternoon to everybody who is here present on the call. I will just maybe quickly provide an armchair's operator perspective on what is it like to join such a prestigious station. And I personally always feel that to be a privilege to be invited to such places such as VE3EJ's, Vlad's, and many others. So we had an opportunity to basically join the team. But I will say that this whole thing started back in Dayton last year in May, and as it normally goes, these stories typically starts over beers, right? So there were some rounds of beers being passed around the table, and I actually did express my interest to K3JO, who was present there, having known about K1. Having known about K1LZ stations, of course, for quite some time, as Vlad pointed out, because we watched them when we were operating ARRLDX from Vlad station. We watched them, the scores that they were putting up, and although you know, they're farther out on the East Coast and they have that location advantage, and they of course have a big station. But there were a few other aspects of that station that intrigued me that we're going to talk later on as we go through the presentation. So back to you, Vlad.
Okay, sir. Yeah. So I was lucky to know the chief engineer Valimir K3JO. I knew him back from the university days in the 80s in Belgrade, when we were both studying at the electrical engineering, and we were members of the university radio club YU1EXY. So I got my ticket through Velimir. Right? He invited me several months before the contest, and I wasn't taking it too seriously, to be honest, since I knew they were very picky about choosing operators, and I I, I wasn't sure if I were going to be there in the end, and I wouldn't take it too hard if that was not the case, because there are so many excellent operators, and they have that luxury to really choose great ops. So, but in the end, I guess they were serious, and I joined the team, which was great. Well, a few words about the station setup. So then we'll talk more maybe about our own experience there. So I've looked through the Krasi's presentation, and from what I understood, they started building that location about 8-9 years ago. It's a property with about 60 acres of land, and there are two major sites. There is a run and in-band site, how they call it. So at the main site, there are about 3 dwellings from what I remember, and there is 1 dwelling at the in-band site. I'll show a picture after this. So in total, from what I could count, there are 9 towers with heights of up to 220 feet, and there are about 6 towers at the run site. It can accommodate a large number of radios and operators. From what I understood, probably up to 18 radios and operators, which is more than enough for one multi operation. You can probably make at least 2 multis for a normal station with that kind of number of radios. What's also unique to this station, and I'm sure Nick will add probably a few more comments around this. I mean, there were so many things that we were amazed with. Is this a hybrid solution where you have this ability to have a mix of on-site and remote operators? You can pretty much have everybody on-site, or you can have pretty much everybody working remote, right? From what I could see. And again, there's that YouTube video that has plenty of info where you can maybe get more info. Nick, do you want to add anything here?
No, thank you. I think we'll just go maybe over a few aspects of the in-band operation and the remote access to the operators, because that station, and I'm not sure if K1LZ is the only one. Definitely, that's the one that I got to experience. I was gonna say that obviously this great station they built came as a result of 2 factors. The one was, on one side, Krasi being a successful businessman and having, I suppose, the ready flow of funds, you know, to fund, you know, building such a big station with towers and everything. But then there was the engineering genius, if I may say, of Val K3JO, who actually was able to put that into a successful solution. And I felt that this was kind of influenced with how the big contest stations in Europe are operating. At least that was my personal experience, that I saw that lots of these big multi stations out in Europe and Middle East, you know, like namely Cyprus and whatever, they were successfully using the in-band operation, and I was quite amazed to see how many QSOs they were racking and keeping up the good rate about it. But again, we will touch base on that down the presentation.
Yeah, that's one thing that I actually remembered from the video where they were saying that it was a lot based on the multi-single perhaps ops in Europe where they would have one maybe run or more than one run and a bunch of multi stations that will be able to synchronize and operate on the same band. Okay, going. So this is again just one picture that I took from the LU9 is these Manu's YouTube video that you can easily find online. You can see in the front there are these 6 big towers that go up to 220 feet, and there at about 1 o'clock you can see one tower in the back. That's an in-band tower. It looks small, but it's really I think it's 140 feet. So that's just mesmerizing to me. You know, when we were there, we were kind of really shocked. At least I was, right, when I saw all that stuff, all that hardware in one spot. Oh, maybe I should also mention, sorry, that on that picture you can see these 3 dwellings. This is the run site. So you can see the red container, and there is one in the middle. We'll talk about that more, which one is which, what's the purpose for each one. Okay, so now a bit about operating on 20 meters. And I was thinking, Nick, why don't you start?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Vlad. So basically, Vlad and then Sugar 55 Mike / W1 ADI and myself, we were assigned to man the 20-meter band, and I think it's fair to say that both Vlad and I were harboring some concerns as to how are we gonna basically be able to, first off, manhandle the new system of the in-band operation, which I have never personally had the chance to be part of. We were given advanced access to the station a couple of weeks before the event, actually through a VPN, and so we were able to actually log in and look around, just to play around with the antenna switching, which was personally my biggest concern, as how are we going to be able to deal with that complexity, in such a short notice without much of a time to be given when we arrive on site. So 20 meters, again, this is a big station, right? So the signals are loud, and relatively speaking, these big stations have a significant advantage over the common ham radio population. But what I personally felt was that the 20 meters was a slog of a band, and for example, we never actually had, the big, like a huge pileups or anything like that. Although I'm sure we were loud and whatever, but I will attribute that to the fact that the high bands are hot now. 10 and 15 meters are probably the primary band for milking QSOs, in such events. So the majority of the activity was basically going on 10 and 15 during the prime hours of the operation. On the other side, though, 20 meter band was open from Krassi's place, was open 24 hours. Of course, the period overnight was slow, and I would say it was very slow, but it did require a constant presence of the operators to be there. And occasionally 3 of us, we found that to be a bit of it difficult, because these are 3 full-time positions that have to be manned, right? Like still, the one station at least has to run, the other one to be also there, and the third one to kind of chase multipliers like an in-band. Vlad and I were physically present on site, as it's already known. And Adi, Sugar 55 Mike, he was our partner, an invisible partner that was part of the team on the band. And, he was just operating out of Europe. I believe he was stationed in Lima, Zulu at the time of the event. But the whole experience of remote control was such great that we never felt that we were kind of a distance that much, right? We were literally operating as a one team throughout the time. We had a little kind of a chat going on WhatsApp, just so that we can kind of exchange comments and maybe talk about things and all that. But soon as after the contest started, we basically kind of synchronized. We got in sync, and at the end of the day, Vlad and I were taking turns at the run stations. I Many times I felt, that I didn't even notice that the inbound radio would actually make a QSO in between and whatever. This is how well it works. And Vlad will touch base on that later on with the antenna switching system, which actually, allows for that flexibility. So back to you, Vlad.
Okay, great. That's a great summary. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so maybe I forgot to mention that, but I think you clarified that. Actually, Nick and I were kind of run operators on 20, and we were joined by Adi from Europe, from Bulgaria at that time. So we had in total 3 operators. I think once or twice also Vladimir was jumping in. We were a little bit short, but it was pretty much it was more 2 of us. I mean, Adi was on and off as well. I'm not sure if he operated that much longer, but still, I mean, he was of great help. Yeah, what I wanted to say, a little anecdote. So I was the lucky one when we started operating, right? I was running first, and before the contest, I remember that Krasi was telling us to park low in the band, and I went to 14:05, and I thought that was great. And I started calling CQ there, maybe 10, 15 minutes before the contest started, and then Krasi came by, and when he saw it, he wasn't very happy. He was telling me something, I'm going to paraphrase a bit, but he was saying that I should be really at 14:01 because that's where those K3LR guys and other big guys, and we should be there. 14:05 was not good. And he was saying on the lines, this should be off the record, that they've been doing that for 30 years and no more, right? That was, anyway, it was kind of funny, but also nerve-wracking. But anyway, it wasn't a great start. And I also remember that, during those initial hours when I was running, I was kind of scared to turn the scoreboard on because I was worried about what those other guys are doing, K3LR. I didn't want to know. I thought I'm just going to do whatever I can, whatever we can, right, as a team. We'll just do our thing and we'll see that later. And luckily, next day, I guess, I'm not sure, I think it was next day, early morning, when we turned it on, and we actually realized we were ahead of them, right? I don't remember, maybe 200 QSOs or something like that after the first night.
So yes, Vlad. Actually, that's a very good point you bring here on the scoreboard. The scoreboard really kept us, on our toes because I think Krasi's goal was that he wanted to basically in this event he actually wanted to compete neck and neck with K3LR, which is again a fantastic station and a fantastic group of operators. I had again a privilege to operate from there once, I think, or maybe twice, I don't remember. So I know how much effort Tim puts into making sure that the station operates the way it should. So being a dedicated operator on a band, it comes down to milking each and every QSO in the contest. When the contest starts and during the prime hours, again, there's always a certain amount of pileup that is going on. But we were so close, actually, maybe not so much with K3LR, but KC1XX, who actually ended up being our silent competitor that I was personally not aware of. But the importance of actually picking up every QSO that comes in, it's actually crucial because you will likely see the score between K1LZ and KC1XX is like a within 0.1%. And of course, the log checking will at the end ultimately, you know, decide which station is going to end up with a better score. So that cooperation between three of us was really, really, like, it's not only down to a guy who runs the station, right? Like at the end of the day, it ended up being, and we felt that, you know, whenever a new guy comes on band, it could be just a common OK1 or Lima Zulu or whatever, you know, even the big station would just jump in and try to working right away. Working the pileups was a different story, and that's typically where you try to be the first to pick the pileup in. So just going back to the scoreboard, I felt that this was actually it was a great tool for us to sort of kind of to track each other, right? And as Vlad said, you know, the pressure was kind of going up whenever they would come close to us, or sometimes they would overtake us, especially overnight. Both K3LR and K1LZ, they were participating in the scoreboard, but KC1XX actually did not. And I realized that they were actually doing great. They were really doing great. I think this is the first time they came back to multi-multi. Matt was multi-2, I think, or multi-single for a good number of years, and then he came back to the big league, you know. And he sent Crossy a pretty mysterious cartoon sometimes in the second day, which I found a bit challenging to decipher, because he was kind of telling us where he is compared to us in K3LR and all that. So anyway, let's go back to the slides, Vlad, because
That's okay. Thanks,
probably
Nick.
gonna run out of time.
This is our screen from the 20 meters run station. So just to make it clear, you know, both Nick and I, we had our own separate run stations and run radios, and this was a view that we both pretty much had. It was a similar view. They are using DX log, and you can see the antennas that are available for selecting. And the one on the left, you can see the antenna selector. They have a really great number of antennas. So just to clarify how this system works a bit, so the first three antennas, 20 meters EU, 20 meters rotary, and 4 square, those are the antennas that are at the run site. And all the others are in-band antennas. So we, the runners, we could choose any antenna, whether it's a run or in-band antenna, while the in-band operator could only choose in-band antennas. That's their architecture. That's how they organize things. And when you just look at those run antennas, the EU antenna currently is just a single 6-element Yagi that's about 65 feet long, and it's at I think 220 feet rotatable. The second one, rotary antenna. Sorry, that's the EU has three. Sorry, the EU is stacked with those three antennas, 65 foot beams, and the rotary one is a single 65 footer, and that one they will add more antennas to that tower. That's a separate tower that only has that antenna. But when they put the first one up, they realized that the boom is too long for the second and third one, so they will have to look into that and see how to add the second and third Yagi to that stack. And the 4 square was working really well, right? So there are quite a few things, I guess, that we can point out here, how this system works. So if you are a 20-meter operator, you're going to see only 20-meter antennas. It's great. I mean, and also if the antenna is rotatable, you'll see this rotator window, which will tell you where the antenna is currently pointing. And then from there, you can easily change the direction if desired. What else? So there's a TX inhibit. Only one station at a time can transmit. So that's regulated by the software that Valimir wrote. And you can't really get on, I think, until the other station finishes sending. Right? So there needs to be quite a lot of synchronization between the operators, right? As we go and we call CQ or so what we had different modes. Normally, you would have one runner who would be running at 14.001, of course, the whole contest, and then the other runner would either go around and work anything that they can hear or see on the cluster, the same as the in-band station, just that the other runner can choose also in addition these antennas that are available at the run site. So what was happening often is that Adi would try to call some juicy runner, and maybe his antennas were not always the greatest, or his antennas are not that high as our antennas. So then he would ask us for help, and then we would go and try to work that station. And often we would end up working that station, through some crazy pileups. What else, Nick? Do you want to chime in?
I think you covered it actually pretty well. There's going to be probably a few other topics on the few other slides when it comes to
Yes.
remote to this, right?
Yes. Okay. So let's move on. Yeah. So here are some of these. I'll let you speak if you don't mind.
Okay. So basically, speaking of the rig and equipment that K1LZ has, I think he initially was using predominantly the ICOM rigs, IC 7800s, and then he sort of started to populate his station with the Yaesu FTDX 101 AMP. I believe this is the rig now that he's predominantly using, in his on his site, and I suppose for a good reason, because that radio, for me, it was the first time that I've actually got to operate with it. But I was quite impressed with the way how this actually radio, handles the interference and all that. So for the way the whole thing was actually put together, obviously, you know, we were located into a shipping container. It was like a pretty long, like a room, and all the radios were put in line. So the radios were connected through a switch to some sort of a switching arrangements, and then going into that big antenna switch, which DXlog had the access to regulate who is going to get which antenna and what. There was some interference, which was to be expected. That's always the case for every multi station. I did not think that this was very excessive. We were pretty much able to operate the way we wanted throughout the whole experience. We there were the amplifiers were ACOM 2000. They were sitting all on one shelf. Again, at the far end of the room, it was just like a one big shelf. And as we know, they're automatic amplifiers, so you don't really have to be next to them to control the amp. Each computer had a control software where you could actually, tune the amp or do whatever you need to do with it. But that actually worked pretty well. Some of the rigs that were sitting next to us were unmanned. They were being used by the remote operators, and there was one K4 that was just sitting, on my left hand side. So it was kind of amusing to see the rig going on all day long. And it's basically an invisible operator that was, I think it was Kilo Lima 2 Alpha out of Alaska who was running it, and whatever, with a pretty good rate, being a remote operator. So I think we can go to a next slide.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Just want to mention, I forgot if I mentioned that on this picture. So when you select one of these in-band antennas, that's actually often it's more than one antenna there for 20. So really there is I think more than a dozen antennas just for 20. Or if you were a 40-meter operator, then from what I remember, there are about six 4-element Yagis for 40, right? So I don't know. A different level. Here's we're gonna talk a little bit about remote operator view. So we were giving a presentation before the contest about how we can log in remotely and how we can use the station. Although we were not doing that, we were not operating remotely, but we were shown how that can be done. You want to chime in again, Nick? Go ahead.
Yes. So thank you, Vlad. So basically, this was basically kind of what the operating screen for those who were operating remotely. Of course, this particular scenario, it pertains to FT1000, but I'm sure they had something else for the ICOM and the Elecraft K4. So going back to this antenna switching, the one that Vlad explained, that you can see it on the upper left side on the DX log. So this was obviously the primary reason why they went with this solution with the antenna switching right within the DX log software, because this basically allows, it is not so much, I think, for the people who are physically on site. You can have a switch box that you can just reach and change antennas as you need it. But those who are working remotely, I think they felt that the best way to do this was to still maintain some form of simplicity, right? Because you can have as many different screens and all that, but all of that, when you operate remotely, is a potential for a problem. And I'm not an expert in remote ops by any means. So having the antenna switching part of an integral part of the DX log, I think it was the key for them to maintain that simplicity in terms of the control, and yet giving that to make it versatile so that the operator can, manage this large amount of antennas that you have, because evidently, each band had many choices in terms of which antennas you can choose and whatever. So going back to the remote, there were two aspects of it, right? So one was, how do you control the contest software, which is DXlog in here, in this case, and how do you control the radio and also the CW? So the control of the DXlog software was basically done through AnyDesk. And as far as I understand, you don't even need to have a VPN access in order to do that. The AnyDesk, is just a piece of desktop software that will allow you to control a PC, right? And that's all really they did in order for the remote ops to be able to to navigate. As we all know, when it comes to CW, and in my opinion, this is kind of a holy grail as to how do you handle the side tone, right? Because there are many solutions out there that when you operate CW, how do you get that feedback when you key, compared to the latency and the TX on and off and whatever. So I kind of found it amusing that they just basically solved that problem by not using it at all. So technically, the remote ops, they never actually had a need to listen to their side tone. And the way they did this, obviously, there was no key, the paddle operation here. Everything was done through CW messages from within the logger. And you probably know that DXlog has that feature that when you key, right, when you hit the message that will send a CW text, it will actually print what you're sending on the screen. I think N1MM does the same. Thank you, Ron. Thanks for that reminder. I think the N1MM also does the same thing. So basically, they solve that issue by just eliminating the need for that. And for the radio control, that had to be done through a VPN because it required elaborate access to the software, you know, that controls the radio. And I think this is how they also channel the audio going back to the operator. Back to you, Vlad.
Okay, sir, moving on, 10 minutes left. So this is just our shack entrance. So since we were on 20, this shack on the left, the red one, was containing, has a 10, 20, and 40 operators positions, right? So there are 6 positions in there. You'll see another picture soon. And in the back, that other little house, that's where the other run operators were for 10, 80, and 160. Here on the left, you can see a cable runs between the run and mount in-band locations. So there, I'm not sure exactly how much, maybe around 1,000 feet. That's the distance between those locations. And there's a lot of cables that go there. They cannot walk, there's no direct path to walk there. And if you want to go to the in-band, you have to pretty much get on the road, drive around, and get to that location. But what's in the plans is to actually build a road, direct road between them. I don't think that would be a problem for Crassi to do that. On the right side, there is an in-band tower, one of those main in-band towers. It's quite busy. I think that's the one that's 140 feet. Just an illustration how many antennas they have. It's hard to fathom until you see it. Here's inside our shack. This is what Nick took this picture, right? So as you can see, there are 6 operating positions. Here's Lars on the right side. He was the main 40-meter operator with Crassi. Crassi would usually sit next to him, and then there will be Nick and myself in the middle, and on the far left are people who were operating on 10. And they were pretty much the main operators were remote operators. And I think just at that moment, that was Jerry who was helping on 10. Anything to add, or should we move on?
No, I think we can move on because we don't have much time left actually for our slot.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so there's a fridge in the shack. Just mention that quickly. They were fed really well. I mean, great hospitality by Crassi and others. I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less from somebody from Eastern Europe like us. You know, you get easily spoiled. We were fed by all kinds of food, including steaks. I don't know. It was great. Here, again, these are pictures from the shack. Nick on 20, or working hard, and then Vladimir on 10. Yeah, Vladimir on 10 helping with the multipliers. You can see Vladimir here having a flashlight on his head. So he was, as usual, he was running around everywhere, fixing whatever needed to be fixed. If there is an operator, you know, you need an operator somewhere, he'll jump in anywhere on any band, either as a runner or as an in-band operator. It doesn't matter. On the right side, this is the kind of a heart of the whole switching system. Sorry, we are running out of time, so I'll make it short. So these are high power relays that are controlled by separate controllers. Here you can see 6 of them. I believe each one is used for one of those bands, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, do you want to add something quickly, Nick, or should we move on?
No, we're good.
Okay. Next one, again, ACOM 2008 amplifiers in our shack. So these are 6 amplifiers for the 6 positions we had in the shack. They were working flawlessly. On the right, you can see a screen of the PC that's running in the same shack that's sporting the antenna server and the rotator control. So this is just a PC dedicated for that purpose. There is only a single instance of the antenna server that controls all the antennas. There are other pictures. There's one more picture I'll show you more in details, maybe how that works. Just a short example. I was lucky to get this whole, well, not the whole thing, but the control software from Velimir at my own place near Ottawa. So here in this example, you can see that I'm running DXlog, and I have my own instance of antenna server, which is controlling all of my antennas. Here, this is a SO2R mode on the left. I have two antennas for 40, and I'm using that ability to listen on a different antenna. This is another bonus with using this kind of system, where you can use different sets of antennas for listening and then for transmitting. On the right side, this is on 15. I'm using a stack and different antennas for receiving and sending. I'll move on. Here is this is a really high-level schema that I got from Velimir for his antenna switching system. No time to go through this, I'm sorry, but pretty much there is one single Arduino processor, Due, that can do a lot, and it communicates with. In a nutshell, there's on every PC that's used to run a radio, there is a DXlog instance running, and every such DXlog instance talks to an antenna server that you can see it on the lower left side that goes through a network switch. And that antenna server is written in C#, and in turn it communicates to the Arduino controller that then actually drives everything else. So from this node you can have, looks like up to 18 radios connected to this Arduino controller. And for the end, these are the operators that were on site after the contest Sunday evening, standing from left. Nick, there is Manu, LU9ESD, the guy who did really well in the SSB leg of the contest. Krasi, the host, we are very thankful to him for everything. Lars in the back, KE1J, Jerry W1VE, Adrian standing on the far right, KO8SCA, and this is Dimitri on the right. That he was our cook, and then sitting or kneeling on the left, that's Mark N5OT, Velimir, the brain, Jeff K1ZN, the living legend, and myself. And also I want to mention briefly the remote ops, Milan LZ5 Delta Bravo. I've heard some unbelievable things about how he can do things, how he can run. And Alex LZ3 Zulu Zulu, Nick LZ3 ND, they all have American calls. John KL2A, Jeff N6GQ, they were on 10, and Adi, he was our in-band mate. That's it. Any closing remarks, Nick?
Well, nothing. Just thank you. We're right at time, so I'm gonna give it back to Ron, right? So I was just gonna say that, I mean, from your perspective, this may sound like an uneventful sort of a event, right? But the amount of work that goes into organizing things like this, and you, the big station owners, know what I'm talking about. It's something really that we should probably always be cognizant on. And I would personally recommend, if you ever had an opportunity to join, teams like that, it's a great experience to have if you're a part of such an event. So thank you. And thanks, Ron, for organizing this.
That's great.
Yeah.
Vlad, Nick, thank you so much. You've stunned everybody into silence. There are absolutely no questions. It's quite impressive.
And that'll be a great thing. Okay.
I kind of envy you a little bit, but it sounds a little bit like work, and I've been retired for a while now, so I'm not sure I want to go through that. But just fascinating. Actually, I had one question myself before we just end here. Is like, of all the software that we saw, is everything custom, or is there anything like commercial in terms of the control software?
I can tell you a bit about that. So So as I said, there are three main pieces, right? There's DXlog, antenna server, and the Arduino software. That's Arduino proprietary. So what's happening is that the late Chris 985K, he was actually working with Grassi and Valimer years ago, and he did a custom solution for them in DXlog. And whatever is in DXlog is actually publicly available. That's how I got it to work, for my own little piece. So that part is okay. The antenna server, I don't think it's kind of publicly available. Valimer gave it to me, but I don't think he has issues sharing that, as far as I understand, with others. I'm not sure who's maintaining that now. Is it him or Paul K1XM, or it could be both of them? And then the software, the Arduino software, that's I think done by Paul mostly, but I know that Valimer is also doing a lot of changes. So I have all those, but you can always talk to Valimer if you are really interested in using something like this.
Okay, that's excellent. Just while you were talking, a couple of items just came in here. One was about backups. Do you have good backups in case something happens?
Backups in terms of logs?
In terms of software and logging.
We did not really kind of look into that, but as we know, DXlog and the major software components, they all have the built-in facility for that. I think it was just a matter of popping in the SD card into each computer, and I'm pretty sure that was taken care of.
Okay. Anything about control software crashing? Any RFI problems?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
It was flawless. I mean, I was praising Valimer the whole time, and everybody else and he was very confident that nothing was going to happen. Yeah. And he didn't.
And he went through several iterations of actually kind of devising that. I'm sure he worked through some of the problems, but one interesting comment he made after the contest was, the control software is a microprocessor driven, and microprocessors, doesn't matter how fast they are, they need to take time to do this vital function of controlling, different peripherals and all that. So I think I heard him saying is that basically, since the switching, for the high power amps in such a congested environment is so important, I think he basically said that he switches everything through on passive components, right? He does not use the microprocessor. He just tells the microprocessor, here's what I've done, right? Of course, the microprocessor will take that into account and then do whatever it needs to be done. But the critical timing to actually flip the relay around was actually down to the analog circuits in that whole solution.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
My understanding is that there's a lot of logic actually built in. A lot of work is actually delegated to that Arduino processing part, where they have all the information at that level, right, about the antennas and what's there, and what's the actual delay. Many things are configurable, and there are some calculations on how long the whole thing should be delayed, before you can release the inhibit on a radio, right? So it's quite interesting.
Excellent. I'm going to stop it there because we're going a little bit over time.